everybody, it is me, Margaret, and I am going to try really hard not to make this an edit heavy video because it takes so much time. Who am I kidding? I can't make anything without editing. Gloomy day outside, cold and rainy, and by the way, how many times have I worn this shirt in videos? I can't remember, but it's my favorite shirt and I wear it all the time and I have a blue one just like it. I hope that's not boring because I don't think of those things. But how about something happy? Dun da da! I have finished this afghan. This was the Repeat Crafter Me gingerbread afghan. And believe it or not, this is the very first afghan I have ever made. I guess it's a lapghan, or as Cynthia the yarnaholic says, a halfghan. It was supposed to have 4 pom-poms on the end, and I was in the process of making poms. I made one, and Buzzy attacked it last night and completely tore it up. Now, we can't say, Margaret, that's because you use yarn to tie your pom-poms up instead of dental floss or crochet thread, because she's managed to do that as well. I mean, she works and works and works until she pulls these things out. So that led me to think I probably should not be putting pom-poms on the ends anyway, which was really a cute idea because Christmas, ball, get it, like, you know, an ornament. I'm sure that's what she was doing. I may try making some tassels and leaving them out overnight and see if Buzzy attacks the tassels. If she does, I think it would be harder for her to get the things out of the tassels. I don't know. But anyway, if she leaves them alone, then I will put some tassels on the end because I think it's plain. But let's see, Bentley needs to be let in, so I'm gonna, do that real quick. However, I give myself a rating of a D+ on this afghan. And that's because I made some really rookie mistakes. Yeah, I want to show some rookie mistakes. First of all, it doesn't really lie flat. You know why? Because I stopped counting. It got really boring having to count each side, and I made an error, and so yeah, there was that. Second rookie mistake. Notice that this is the back side of a double crochet. This is the back side of a double crochet. This right here is the front side of a double crochet. Now, how on earth did that happen? That's because I had to fasten off every time I did the little icing part right here. Then of course I would put it down and I'd come back to work on it again, and it had never occurred to me to check to see whether it was on the right side or the wrong side. I don't know why, but it just didn't. Now, I really would have liked this to be the front side of it because I have the front side of a double crochet, front side of a double crochet, and then the back side around the edge. But look at the trim. I did the trim, that was the back of the trim, and I don't like that. So I decided to do it like this. And so that's why it's like that, because the trim looks so much better. So there's that. Now, one thing I did do that I did like a lot is, you know, when you sew these on, you usually sew it all the way through. Well, let me turn it back around like this. In this case, you're chaining on top of the work, so you didn't have a choice but to have that mark. But what I did with the other two is I sewed them on, or the other 3, the 2 eyes, the other 4, the 2 eyes and the 2 cheeks, is I sewed them on with thread. So you don't even see that on the back here. And they're nice and tight, so I'm very pleased with that. And I probably would do that again on a blanket. So I do like that. So the fact that it doesn't lie straight, the fact that I used different sides when I picked my work up, and the fact that I can't put the pom-poms on it give me a D for my work. But you know what? This is cute enough. It's only going to be out part of the year, and that's okay. It's all right. I think it's cute enough. Now, yesterday was Super Bowl Sunday, and I crocheted all day long. Here we are in the pandemic, couldn't even go to church. I was home all day, and this is all I got done. This right here, this granny square. How is that possible, you might ask? Well, because I worked on something, didn't work, ripped it out. Worked on something else, didn't work, ripped it out. Worked on something else, didn't work, ripped it out. So I'm liking this, and I was doing a pretty good job. There will be a border that's supposed to go around here. I like the colors. It goes well with my carpet here in this living room, but we get over here. Look at that. Look how bad that side is. And didn't even realize it as I was checking it each time. I guess I was holding it in the wrong way. So this has got to be ripped out. I don't like it. Basically what I'm learning about myself is I am not an Afghan maker, which in turn kind of makes me want to do it anyway because I don't want it to beat me. So I've ripped this yarn out over and over again. Now you might want to see what I do here. I noticed recently that I had an Ask Me Anything question that talked about how to get a center pull ball without knotting it up. And I did answer that. I'll put that footage in here. Rose Cottage Studio, is there any trick to locate the center start of a skein of yarn? It is so frustrating. I pull out 25% of yarn barf that I need to untangle, and it's a rarity that it's just sticking out to sea. You're right. You know what? Hirschner's Worst to Date came with the tail sticking out and a little sticker on the end that said center pull ball, and that is the only one that I've ever seen do that. I love the cake yarn because they're already spun up in a center pull cake where you just pull from the center and it sits flat because it is caked. Love that too. But I will show you a clip where I started working on this video earlier and got totally interrupted, but I saved that clip. You take your fingers. I use my pointer fingers and I stick them in each side until I can touch the other finger. And then I'll add a thumb and then grab the yarn right there where my fingers were meeting. And when I start to pull it out, you see I've got a yarn baby right here, and then there's my end. And this is not knotted, it's just kind of wound left and right upon itself. So that's how it should work. Does it always work like this? Why, no, it does not. Different manufacturers do a better job at it than others. So I have found that Vanna's Choice usually comes out pretty easy. Hence the reason I picked this up for this demonstration. So I hope that answers that question. And then shortly after I read that question, I see that Mikey of the Crochet Crowd puts out a video about how to avoid yarn barf or something along that. And I'm thinking, what's all these questions about people with knotty yarn? I never have knotty yarn. I just don't have a problem with it. If it catches, I find it pretty easy to unknot it. So that brought me to my methodology here for when I rip out, because apparently I'm a pro at ripping out. I've got a lot of practice doing that. So I grabbed these things, and as I ripped, I just laid it on top just like this, so that it was kind of like spaghetti lying on one another. So when you pick it up and you go, it just kind of feeds out nicely like this. So you know, if you're ripping behind, you don't have to roll it up if you don't want to. Because I only had, well, how much? See the difference here? I got that much, so I didn't want to re-roll the entire ball. So that's my method for keeping it from getting knotted, and I've never had any problem with that. So if you are a ripper like me, maybe this is something that you have. If you've got some good tips about how to keep your ripped out yarn instead of having to go and cake it up, because sometimes I do cake it up if it's a lot like that. But if you have any other tips for something like this, share them in the description box below. What this is pretty much the same thing as that Afghan over there. It's a big, simple, solid granny. And what you do is, well, I'll insert a picture, of course, but you would use your contrasting yarn to do that chain, surface chain stitching all along the edges of it, which I just thought was a really simple and classic type of look. I kind of liked that. So I thought I would go with that after all my hoopla. We'll see how that turns out. I just realized I was in the dark. Is that light better? And now let's move on to acquisitions. Yes, I bought more yarn. I have been doing a lot of selfish crochet and knitting lately. Well, actually, I haven't been doing a lot of knitting lately, which brings me to the next Ask Me Anything question. Okay, now we're moving on to Martha Brooke, and she says, hello, Margaret. Just wondering if you have a good knitted hat tutorial using double pointed needles. No. And she goes on to say, I know you're partial to crochet, especially hats. I am not partial to crochet, especially hats. I am for doing tutorials. And the reason why is because I'm confident in that. I mean, you'll see the name of my channel is Sheepishly Sharing. I didn't name it sheepish because it had something to do with wool. Most of what I use is acrylic, for heaven's sakes. I named it sheepish because I was very sheepish about sharing my work with other people when I was trying to find a group that appreciated knitting and crochet, because my friends didn't. And that's exactly why I started my channel. And I was very sheepish about it, and to this day I really am. I don't mind showing you my mess ups, but I'm not going to try to teach you something that I'm not really comfortable and confident in. And crochet hats, I am. Knitted hats, I'm pretty confident with those too. However, knitting is it's just filled with so many variables. For example, you specifically say double pointed needles. I don't use those anymore. I learned with those, but I'm not as good as that as I am with magic loop. I find that my work is very uneven when I use the double pointed needles, and I really don't know how to fix that. So it doesn't make good sense for me. And here's another thing that perplexes me is when you're doing your knitting tutorial, I mean, I feel torn sometimes saying, you know, well, I'm doing this, I'm a continental knitter. I can't knit the other way. So here's how to do the hat. As long as you're able to transfer the information from what I'm doing into what you're doing, your methods, then it's fine. But if you have to see your way of doing something, then the tutorial's no good to you. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's another reason why I'm kind of like, there's too many variables in knitting, so I haven't really pushed that knitting tutorial thing. So in any way, all that to say, in answer to your question, no, I don't have a tutorial at this time. Probably won't with double pointed needles. And I am not partial to crochet. It's just that, you know, that's where my confidence is in tutorials. Then she goes on to say, I really want to try knitting a hat, and I enjoy your videos and teaching style. And I appreciate that, Martha, and I appreciate it on different levels. Your kindness for saying that, and also understanding when you find somebody whose teaching style aligns with your learning style, that's golden. That's when you can really, you know, run with it. And that is my advice. If you're learning to knit, if anybody is learning to knit, to knit, watch more than one video, more than one teacher, more than one style. It's the combination of what you're learning when you're watching this that will eventually implant in that brain, and it's gonna all come in, it's gonna just all register at a certain point when you hit the right person. For me, being a crocheter first, I found that continental knitting was far more comfortable for me. That's when you hold the yarn in your left hand. So I'll throw that little tidbit out there, although I don't know if that's the norm in that case or not. As a matter of fact, I tend to think that it could be all over the board if we were to interview a lot of people with that, which you end up preferring. It's how you process the information that you're seeing that makes the difference in what you feel the most comfortable with. Yeah, I do suggest doing that. And also, I get in phases. For example, there was a time last year where I was doing only knitting, and somebody said, are you ever going to do any more crochet? They got tired of looking at my knitting. So now I happen to be in a crochet phase. So crochet is kind of like coming home to me because it's what I learned first. And so I do find it a kind of comforting thing. But I feel like knitting is far more versatile. You can do so many more stitches with it. I think it's a little bit more refined. Crochet is more of a bulky, fun type thing, where knitting can actually be breathtakingly beautiful. So at least that's my own opinion. And you know what? All of this stuff, for that matter, is all about opinion, isn't it? art. Art is opinion. Okay, what am I holding? Heartland, because I found a sweater. It's a cardigan from the Make and Do crew. And that leads me to another Ask Me Anything question. And Elizabeth Zerke, I don't know how to say your last name. Have you ever made a cardigan? No, I haven't ever made a cardigan. The only sweater that I've ever made was a Harry Potter sweater, and I made that for my daughter. It had an R on it, like Mrs. Weasley made for Ron. That's exactly the way she wanted it. So it came out great, but no, I don't trust my skill set with sweaters because of the sizing, not so much my ability to knit or to crochet. I know I could manage those stitches okay if I choose one within my skill set. Knitting's a little bit harder. I just don't trust my sizing. I sew, and I even have trouble with sewing and sizing, so I know that the amount of work that I would put into a sweater is just kind of iffy, so I don't jump into that. So back to this yarn. I usually follow tutorials. I don't pay any attention to what the type of yarn is. I just look at it for the gauge. You know, oh, they're using a number 4 worsted, and that's good enough for me. But in this case, I really wanted to use the Heartland because I love Heartland from Lion Brand. It's got a really good feel to it, and it has a very good drape to it. It's not stiff in any way. It's a very flowy thing, and I think that's what you need for this particular cardigan, which I will insert a picture somewhere. So the first thing I did when I got my order from Michaels, which was on sale, I think I got all of this for $26, so that was pretty good. And the first thing I did was I checked the dye lots on all of this. Luckily for me, the dye lots were all the same, but I have heard that sometimes people have trouble with the Heartland not looking the same, but all of these look the same. I've never had that experience. I have a bunch of blue Heartland up there in my stash too, but I really wanted this color for this type of sweater, so that's where I'm going with that. So wish me luck on that, since I don't seem to be doing so well with my blankets. Sizing is a huge fear of mine. I sew, and so I know how hard it is to size things, but sewing, it's a little bit easier to make your alterations. With this, you pretty much need to know from the beginning how much you're going to chain to start and what it's going to be. But then you have the other issue of drape. For example, this stitch this yarn in general and crochet in general, gravity takes a toll and it will stretch. So I don't want to get it too long, or it'll end up looking like I am wearing my big sister's clothes, and I don't want to do that. And Tucker's here with the groceries. She asked several questions in one question. And first of all, she said, what about Sister Margaret Mary? She's handling it surprisingly well. She has, well, that's not true. When I say surprise, I knew her attitude would be good, but that's a lot of chemo, and that her body has handled very well. So that's what I'm really pleased with. But she's in good spirits and feels pretty good, a lot of fatigue, but she's doing really well. So thanks for asking. So I'm editing and I realized I totally left out my favorite part of Elizabeth's question. She had said, Kristen, with a question mark. And I wrote back and I said, Kristen? And she says, the gal who helped you knit lives in New Hampshire? Sorry if I got the name wrong. And then Susie saw this before I did, and she said, maybe you mean Erin from Vermont? And Elizabeth says, sorry, Erin from Vermont. Senior moment for sure. And I can totally relate to that. And actually, Elizabeth, you are totally in the right park. Kristen is Erin's wife, and they're both my friends, and they're from Vermont, which is one of the prettiest states in our beautiful United States of America. Gorgeous. But Erin is my knitting guru. She taught me everything that I know, and she is still teaching me to this day, because knitting, there's always something to learn about knitting, something new to learn. And so if I have a question or I'm confused, the first person I'm going to go to is Erin. Now, she has changed the name of her channel from her username, which was Gimme Yarn 418, to Everyday Erin, which is really a good idea because it kind of reflects more about what her channel is about. If you get a chance, I want you to watch her latest video. She knit that sweater right there from a picture that Kristen showed her. That's Kristen, by the way. And she said, I really like this sweater. Without a pattern, Erin created it. And she did a really, really good job. So I'm going to link that video down below. And in the background of my videos, not right this very minute, but I have that black thing back there. You might notice that this is displayed on it. And Kristen painted this for me. This is one of her talents. Erin does a lot of the yarn. She can do, Erin can do everything. She's a great cook, and she sews, and she creates anything. And Kristen does things that Erin doesn't, so they're a real good complement to one another. Kristen is a great gardener. She can build things and she can paint, and this was a gift that she gave me that I value a lot. Not only because it's Bentley, but because Kristen made it. So it's, see, she signed the back, in the back right there. So things like this are, I'm a really sentimental type person. And so thanks for asking about my friends, Elizabeth. Okay, moving on. Oh, no, we're not through with Elizabeth. She said, did you hear Webb's was sold? I did hear that, to Love Crafts. I have never had any experience with Love Crafts, actually. They did ask me right when I was leaving Georgia if I would like to receive some products to review, and I said, I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of a move right now, I can't do it. And they said, as soon as you get settled, let us know. I did reach out and they ignored me. So, so that's been my only experience with Love Crafts. So I don't know. I have nothing educated to say about that. She asked for a crochet pattern for a beginner. I have one of those. It's a tutorial for a preemie hat. I also have a tutorial I just released talking about hat sizing, so you could actually learn to size that preemie hat into any size that you wanted. So I will link that below. And last but not least, she says, isn't retirement great? And you know it is, except for I feel like I'm working harder now than I was before. What I did before was volunteer. I was not receiving a paycheck when this official retirement happened. Of course, I've been a volunteer for ages. And I tend to volunteer big ways, like running the Mississippi Metropolitan Ballet. I don't just volunteer. Or I'm running the parent program at Thomas's school. And that's wonderful. It's rewarding. I love it, but it's full-time work for no pay. So now, at least when I'm putting in things like product reviews and tutorials and things like that, I do get a little money from YouTube for it, or a free product or something like that. So I'm supposed to be retired, but I'm actually working pretty hard. So anyhow, okay, more questions from Naja, and she says, hope you're well. I am, have lots of questions. Do you have a favorite crochet pattern right now? I do not, and I am constantly looking at patterns. It's kind of like a hobby in itself, and I'm sure it is for you guys too. And I kind of go back and forth on all the things that I wish I could make, some of the things I feel like I cannot make, and some of the things that I want to make right then. And I only do what strikes me. I will never have a list and say, I will complete these this year, because I can't do that. It's whatever strikes me in the moment. She says, what are some unexpected things one could make with the Addi or the Addi king size? I will link my Addi facts video, frequently asked questions video below, and I show a lot of very unique items that are there, like a dress, for example. Can you make something with cotton on the Addi? If you're asking, is it possible? Yes, it's possible. I would suggest you do it without any tension at all. If you're asking if I personally can make something with cotton on the Addi, I don't enjoy working with cotton on the Addi. It doesn't have enough stretch. I don't think it works up well. Since you can't use any tension at all, I get uneven stitches, and it's just not my favorite. But other people have used it with success, so, you know, I don't know. What's your favorite thing to crochet with cotton yarn? Well, the only thing I really have crocheted with cotton yarn would be things for the kitchen. I've done a bib, which I think are cute. I've done some really cute bibs by Sarah of Repeat Crafter Me. They look like monsters. It's in some old videos, and I think it's actually the thumbnail. I think amigurumi is a really good thing to use cotton yarn for because of that lack of stretch. Use a small hook and you got this really firm, tight finish. So I like that a lot. So those are good questions. All right, let's move on to Country Darling. She says, I'm a new sub. Not sure if you've already covered this before, but my questions are, how did you learn to crochet or knit, and how long have you been doing each one? I don't really remember. I think it was around 2008, I think it was, when I started. It's a really dark time in my life, and I happened to be sitting in church one day and a missionary came to speak to us, and he mentions, this was in the Congo actually, of all places, and I remember being very surprised to hear that he needed knit or crocheted hats in bright colors, brighter the better, to give to all the children around there. Well, actually everybody. Apparently it gets really cold at night. I don't remember. So anyhow, I said, you know, that might be something that I can do, because I was really backing off from a lot of my big responsibilities, because I never do anything or never did anything in small portions. I was backing off, and I thought, oh, this would be a really good activity for me to do. So I went to Michael's and I looked at different pattern books, and it looked like algebra. And I thought, there is no way I can ever learn to do this. And so I was about to leave, and I walked past the looms, the knitting looms, you know, and I bought a set of those, and that started my love. As a matter of fact, I can show you my very first hat. Let me get it. This is it. This is what started off the whole thing. This is a yarn by Karen called Dazzle-Air. It's discontinued now, and it feels really good. Has that halo to it, you know, the fuzz that comes up on it, like a mohair, but this is just 100% acrylic. And this is loom knitted on one of those looms. And look how short I cut my ends. The tutorial that I watched online to teach did not talk about sewing in the ends. They just finished it off and said, there, you're finished. And so I didn't know that I was supposed to sew those in. And so from loom knitting, I went into crochet, learned most of what I do from Bob Wilson 123, although I did crochet when I was in like the 5th grade. So that's probably why I have a weird technique. It's because it was left over from the 5th grade. And then from there, I learned, got the Addi machines because I wanted to learn to knit, and I could not do it. It took me forever to learn to knit. And then finally, knit. So I love it all, never looked back, and it turns that's a good example of when a really bad situation can lead you into something really wonderful. And look what it did. I love it. Okay, so now we're moving on to Jeannie Smith, and she says, I just started making an infinite hoodie scarf. I want to know, because I've never made this scarf before, my question is, when I finish making my infinite, I mean, this is not capitalized, so I'm guessing that you maybe meant to say an infinity hoodie scarf. If it was, or is this the name of a pattern called infinite hoodie scarf? I don't know. Do I sew the ends together, or should I just leave the ends apart? I tried to find the pattern for it. I didn't write anything down for the pattern or how I found it in case I need to look at it again. Okay, well, first of all, since I'm a little unclear as to this being a specific pattern or just infinity scarves in general. Infinity scarves are one big loop that are joined, because a circle is infinity, right? It never stops. There's no beginning, there's no end. A regular scarf does not have the ends joined. So if you have a hoodie scarf with the ends, you know, one end here, not sewn together, then that's not an infinity scarf. That would just be a hoodie scarf, and you wrap one end over here and one end over here. If you want the infinity scarf, then you're going to need to sew those ends together, in which case you have your hood on, you sew the ends together, and then you twist them and put it on around your head to make more of a cowl look like that. So I guess I answered that question. I hope I understood it correctly. But thank you, Jeannie. So this is from Michelle Ellis. Hi, Margaret. Hope you and your family are well. My questions are, what's your favorite yarn? I don't have a favorite yarn. I love all yarn, and I think all yarn has its purpose. For example, that knitted scarf that I did, that lends itself to a higher quality yarn. I just felt like it really needed to be something special. But for, you know, fun little hats or that fun little blanket downstairs, acrylic is great, and I really like it. Have you tried knitting socks? Why, yes, I have, and I've got a couple of videos that I will link below of my sock knitting adventures. And you know what? It has been a while. With the move, I had to kind of spend a lot of my extra time packing and sorting and donating and doing all that stuff before we moved out here to Texas, and I quit doing that. And so it's been a really long time since I have tried to knit a sock, so I probably need to pick that back up again, as I did enjoy it. Oh look, it's me editing again, and I see that Kim Morrow asked, do you have a favorite sock knitting pattern or video for beginners? And I do, and I'm going to insert that right here. I'm also going to leave below my favorite book that I had and the Fish Lips Kiss Heel link that was given to me by Sarah, who is the most awesome sock knitter. I mean, she just is known for her sock knitting, and she shared that with me, and it really was an eye-opener, because there's far more information in that Fish Lips Kiss Heel than just the pattern itself. It's all about fitting socks and all that kind of stuff, and it's only $1, and it's well worth it. Do you have any favorite make or makes that you have knit or crocheted? And yeah, that would be, well, first of all, this, which is the first thing I ever did. Obviously, I never gave it away, and I keep it handy because I love it. It just makes me happy. This is what started it all off. And then that scarf that I made recently with that pretty yarn, which is called the Tender Scarf. I'll try to insert a picture. Not only was that yarn special to me, that memory of where I bought it with Erin, that's a really special scarf to me because of the association with my friendship with Erin too. So, and it's pretty. It's probably the prettiest thing that I've ever made. And that's all she's asked. Oh wait, I said that was a knitting pattern, but crochet, knit or crochet. My favorite crochet pattern I ever did was that big bear blanket that I made for Maggie, and then I kind of winged it with my own design for 2 Star Wars versions for the boys. And I don't think they use those anymore, but they were fun. All right, this next question is about the Addi. It's from Sally Williams. She says she got white lithium grease in a spray can. Her Addi is getting noisy. Where and how should I use it? Reluctant to dismantle it, thanks. Funny you should mention that, because I have tried 3 times to film a video about maintenance for the Addi, and it's very time consuming. I don't ever get the right shots that I want, so I keep putting this off. But if you don't want to dismantle it, the only thing I know to tell you to do is to squirt down in each of the little openings where the needles come up. I would not recommend that unless, of course, your machine is new and it's just making noises and it's bothering you. But if your machine has been used for a long period of time, say a year or more, then you're probably going to have a bunch of fuzz buildup in there. And that I would not suggest adding the grease on top of the fuzz buildup, in which case you really would need to dismantle it. And my best advice for dismantling it is just one step at a time. If you need to, take pictures to remember the order that you put everything in. There are some videos out there. I think it's by Cʀᴇᴜ. I'm not sure, but they're not easy to find. It's not complicated. It's just you have to be very careful. All right, moving on. Have you tried Tunisian crochet? I have. Wait, I have this wonderful set by Nick Picks of Tunisian crochet hooks, and see if you can see it. See, they work by putting a cord. You can put any length cord, just like the circular knitting needles. You use the same type of cord, and it just kind of screws in there and you tighten it up. And so you can have a Tunisian crochet hook of any length. I'm out of breath running up and down the stairs. But I have a whole set of these that I keep down here in the bottom portion of this pencil case. This is my regular crochet hooks in here, and then I keep the Tunisian ones down here. Now, as far as a review goes, this is an inline hook, very similar to a Susan Bates, but but it has a very rounded head up here. I wish it were a little bit pointier on there, but the wood is wonderful. It's very smooth. I don't really like wood hooks as much as I do the metal hooks, but you know, for Tunisian, this is awesome. So I would recommend these. I'll put a link in the description box below. I wonder if, assuming they still have this version. I bought those years ago. It's been a long time since I've done any Tunisian, but I would like to do it again. That was when my phase when I was really trying hard to find a knitting substitute because I could not knit. And so I wanted to get more of a knit look. So I tried Tunisian and I tried that nooking, if you've ever seen that. I tried everything. But anyway, moving on. Oh wait, Courtney also asks, have you ever tried yarn spinning with a drop spindle? No, I haven't, and I have no desire to spin yarn whatsoever. Although, strangely enough, I'm absolutely fascinated by it. For example, I went to this arts festival and just sat and watched this woman for far longer than I should have, because the process, she was using a real spinning wheel, and the process was just mesmerizing. So I respect it a lot, but yet it's nothing I've ever wanted to do. Do you have any project recommendations for hand sewing for beginners? No, I'm the worst hand sewer ever in the history of hand sewing. I have tried to do embroidery, can't do it. I can cross stitch. Cross stitch is easy, I can do that. But I've tried to do embroidery and I'm horrible. I cannot keep the stitches even. I cannot even do a hand hem very well. When I have to sew amigurumi projects on there, it's with a wing and a prayer, and even sewing on those eyes and cheeks on that blanket down there, I was like, oh goodness, it's just a very tension thing. I'm horrible. But my recommendation would be to get on YouTube or go to Craftsy. I've watched some awesome embroidery classes on Craftsy. They were really impressive. Some of the classes that are on Craftsy, if you look up here, it says 65 classes. And there are lots of very different type classes as well. But also, just on a whim, I searched Skillshare, which you know I love. And they've got some pretty interesting things. Look at this one right here. Hand embroidered create mixed media with spoon flower printed fabric. So apparently you could embroider on top of it, maybe? I don't know, but I'm really interested now. How many classes do they have on embroidery? 151, strangely enough. So, there you go. So there are plenty of people out there better qualified than I am for any kind of hand sewing. And then I popped over here to the Facebook Sheepishly Sharing group, and Wanda Adams had asked, can you show a video how to add crochet ribbing on an Addi hat? And then she writes the word completely. I thought I did. There was a link to a video where I showed how I put a crochet. And it was an old video, but the information is still current, and I thought I did do that completely. So Wanda, if there's more to that question that I'm misunderstanding, let me know. And then Rena, one of my longtime video friends, says, not craft related, but I've always been a sucker for love stories. How did you and Tucker meet? How early in your relationship did you know that he was the one? Tucker and I met through friends. He was friends with these people since high school. I was friends with these people since college, but we did not know each other until many years after that. As a matter of fact, we stood next to one another in their wedding, the friend's wedding, and we did not know each other at that time. And then later they fixed us up on a date. Well, I did not think I was on a date. They told me, it's not a date, it's just friends going out, because they knew that I wouldn't go. And they told him it was a date. We didn't know that until after we were married and we were each telling our version of the story. I was like, wait, what? That's kind of funny. And we didn't date for although it wasn't a long engagement. I don't remember exactly, but yeah. And it's now what, 32, 33 years later, and here we are. So that was that. And actually, those friends are one of the reasons why we are here in Texas. When we were deciding where we wanted to retire, our daughter is in Texas. We have our oldest son in California. We were all the way over in Atlanta, and so we knew we wanted to get closer towards the middle of the country. It made sense to be near Maggie. The biggest icing on the cake was that these very close friends are right here in this neighborhood. So, I mean, we lived next door to each other, raised our kids together for many years, and, you know, we just have a history with these people, so we're really happy to be here with them. So, that's a little trivia. So that's all I've got to talk about today. Wish me luck on that sweater. I'll keep you posted on my progress. She says it's easy. Hope it is. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.